Good morning. My name is Ileana, and I'm a librarian at the San Francisco Public Library in California on the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples. Wherever you're tuning in from, we're so happy to have you with us today, and I'm excited to welcome you to our final Nature Boost. We truly hope you are enjoying our virtual program this summer. It's all a part of Summer Stride, our award-winning summer learning and reading program for all ages. Summer Stride has been extended with a finishing date of September 7th. Be sure to visit our website for more late-breaking news, and you have a couple more days to finish that reading. Today's program is part of our Nature Boost series, brought to you in partnership with the National Park Service, the Golden Gate Parks Conservancy, and the Presidio Trust. Visit our virtual trailhead at sfpl.org/virtual trailhead. Today's program and all of our Nature Boost programs are made possible thanks to the support of our wonderful sponsors. We would not be able to do this without them. Today, we're going to switch it up a little and have some time to meet, learn, and talk with some of our local heroes. The gray and green and in between is an opportunity to meet your park rangers and park friends in this live panel exploring careers in your national parks and the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Hear about their journeys to a park career and how you too can join them someday as part of the park family. If you have any questions for any of our panelists, their career journey, or their work, please add them to the chat and we'll be sure to get to them. We will have some time after to also answer questions, so don't forget to add your questions in our chat. First up, I'd like to invite Hilda Ramirez, High School Program Manager from the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, to kick off our panelists' journey for where they're working. Welcome, Hilda.
Thank you so much. And I am really honored to be here with my fellow panelists. I just want to tell you a quick story about me and how I got involved in the parks. When I was in high school, I was a sophomore, and I got word of this program called the Inspiring Young Emerging Leaders Program. The thing that stood out to me the most is that they paid. So that was something that I was that got my attention. But then they started talking about building leadership skills, and I saw myself as a leader. And so in this journey of going through this youth program, I felt more confident. I felt like I was practicing my public speaking skills, and definitely also being able to interact with communities as well. I think that was something that really stood out to me. I didn't know too much about the parks. I had never been on Alcatraz. I've known about Yosemite, but I never really knew why it was important. And yeah, being a part of that program, the Inspiring Young Emerging Leaders Program, or IYEL, was a way for me to be able to learn about the parks and to also learn a little bit more about myself and what I could do for my community. So after I graduated high school, I came back to San Francisco. I'm sorry, I went to college and then I came back to San Francisco, and I was able to join the center, which was the Christie Field Center, which was where this program took place. And I think what motivated me to do it was because I really cared about community. I really cared about young people. And this was a good intersection of that, a career where I can be serving the community and then also being able to help young people feel confident. So I came back to the same program that I was a part of. And yeah, if for those of you that are listening, if you have nothing to do with parks right now, or that's totally okay. Like I said, like that was me. But I did care a lot about community. And so that was something that for sure pulled me more and more into this career of being able to also say, hey, when we go to parks, this is not just for people that have always used it. This is not just for joggers. This is for other people too. This is for people that have never been there and want to engage in it in a different way. So Yeah, I wanna say that if this is if the parks is something that's kind of strange or you don't really know it too well, but you do care a lot about community, I think doing a job like the one that I have, where you're working at a community center or you're working in the parks to try to get people that don't get to normally come to the parks to come and use it, I think that's a really, really, really great skill. And yeah, if you believe a lot in youth voice, like I do, being involved in youth programs or working with high school students, this is also that good career. And I would also say, just for those of you that are thinking about this, yeah, if community is something that's really, really important to you, and you feel like it's something that speaks to you, and you want to be able to share that where you come from. Like I said, I grew up in the Mission District, so that was something that was important to me, to be able to connect it to my community. So that's something I still try to do still till today. There's some challenges that come into it, right? I think being able to come and go into spaces or go into places maybe where there's set etiquette or outdoor etiquette that has sometimes came into being problems with us coming into those sites or those places. But we got to remind people that parks is not just for people that have always used them. It's for people, for everyone. It's for people that have never even been there. So if that is something, again, that you're interested in, please ask me more questions, and I'd be glad to answer some more of those. So again, my name is Hilder, and I work with the Inspiring Young Emerging Leaders program, the youth leadership program.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I'm not muted, right? No. Thank you so much, Hilder. I think it's so important to be able to have a pathway for youth that grow up in San Francisco to want to stay here, right? And IYEL and other youth development programs like that with institutions that they may not be as familiar with are super, super important for that reason. How would somebody apply for IYEL if they were interested?
Yeah, so and it's not a regular year this year. So unfortunately, we're not going to be taking in applicants or new applicants this year. We're only going to be working with young people that we've worked with in the past, just because we don't have enough resources right now for everybody. But typically, yeah, we go out to outreach to different schools. But on our website, IYEL.org, we will usually put our application on there. So when all that becomes ready again, we will start doing that. But yeah, typically you can find the information at IYEL.org.
Cool. So that's the best place to get kind of the late breaking updates for IYEL. And I really, really appreciate your story about you being from here, growing up here, and wanting to stay here and learning more about the park and the city. And I think I really appreciate how you say that that's something that parks are for everybody, right? Whether you think they're for you or not. That's exactly what they are. So thank you so much, Hilder. I wanted to introduce our next presenter, our next panelist, Mariajosé, who actually has a connection to Hilder in her journey to her position. MJ, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ranger Mariajosé. You can call me MJ for short. And actually, fun fact, that is me along with Hilder when we were together in the IYEL internship. So again, I am Mariajosé. I'm a community programs outreach ranger in Golden Gate National Recreation Area. And I'm so excited to be sharing another Summer Stride Nature Boost program with you all. So on your screen, you should be looking at a picture of my young self, 17 years old at the Grand Canyon. That was my very first National Park Service career experience. But let me take you back a little bit. So growing up, I'm also a San Francisco native. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I grew up in the Mission District and the Sunset District. So when I was growing up, my parents, they took me out to nature escapes. They took me on my first camping trip to a redwood forest somewhere south. They called it El Bosque Oscuro, the dark forest. No idea where that is, but it was a magical experience when I was a toddler and growing up, even to a couple KOA campgrounds too. When I was in fifth grade, my school took me on my very first backpacking trip. And that was just like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is so cool. In middle school, I joined an internship with the San Francisco Conservation Corps. It was called Youth in Action. And it was this internship that I got to go after school, get tutoring on my homework. And on Saturdays, we put on our SFCC shirts and we went out to the different San Francisco communities. We were building community gardens. We were taking out invasive plants in different community parks. And we got to build a really nice community there. So through that internship opportunity in middle school, I got to meet some other people who were going on to create an internship called Inspiring Young Emerging Leaders, IYEL. So they invited me to their big event. I was in 8th grade and I was like, oh my gosh, these IYEL interns are so cool. They did this really awesome live play. It was called Not in My Backyard. And it was so hilarious, but they were teaching us about environmental justice. I had no idea what that meant. Fast forward to 9th grade, I'm in high school, happened to go to high school at Cross Cultural Environmental Leadership Academy. It was a short-lived high school in San Francisco that was in the Presidio. And through there, we met some park staff that came out and did a presentation in one of my classes. And they're like, we have this internship. It's IYEL, Inspiring Young Emerging Leaders. We're going to take you camping. We're going to take you to the snow. We're going to take you kayaking. You're going to learn about your national parks. And I was like, wait, that's that same internship that they did. I went to their play. I'm totally signed up, and I became an intern instantly. And through that internship, I've always been a girly girl, if you can't already tell, with my lipstick and everything. My dream was to be a pop star, to be the next pop star. And I didn't know what else to think other than Lizzie McGuire, and the show was my idol at the time. But in this internship, I was learning about social justice, environmental justice. I was actually learning how to create and present workshops about point source pollution and non-point source pollution. And through that internship, I got to meet a lot of passionate and inspiring park staff. So my mentors were always there for me. They would keep asking me, what do you want to be when you grow up? What are you going to study when you go to college? And I was like, I don't know. I still want to be a pop star. But I met so many park rangers that were so excited about their job. A lot of them got to live in their national park. They were so passionate about what they did. And one of those rangers who inspired me so much is actually on this panel today. We'll hear from them later. But when we were in the Grand Canyon, we took a big field trip my junior year of high school to the Grand Canyon. And one of the rangers there was like, hey, like we're always hiring, like you should be a park ranger too. And I was like, I would love to be a park ranger. This is so awesome. He remembered that. And then when I was in my senior year of high school, they reached out to my mentors at the Chrissy Field Center and they said, hey, Grand Canyon is hiring. Would you like to apply? I'm like, me become a park ranger? Sure, that'd be totally cool. I asked my parents for permission. It took a lot of phone calls between my parents and the rangers at Grand Canyon to convince them. But as soon as I graduated high school, June of 2007, 2 days later, we were road tripping to Arizona and I got to start my very first National Park Service career experience. So that was a life-changing event. And when I got back from that long summer at the Grand Canyon, I was able to come back to my home park, Golden Gate National Recreation Area, and I was hired as a ranger at the Marin Headlands, my favoriteest place in the whole wide world now. So with this park, I get to do so many cool things like outreaching in the roving ranger. This is the picture that is in front of your screen right now. I get to drive a truck, which is like a visitor center on wheels, and get to reach out to future park staff, future park rangers, inspire them to become interns too. I get to drive that truck to fairs and festivals. Well, not right now, but I used to, and I used to go to college campuses and do that too. But now in my job during these times, I get to do virtual programs, which is another one of my favorite things to do. I feel so happy to be able to share my national park passion and share the stories and the songs and be silly on screen with you all from the comfort of my home, from the safety of my home. So I hope that you can see yourself in your national parks too. And if you have any questions about what it takes to become a park ranger, we are open to share that information with you. So
MJ, that is so inspiring, MJ. I think the first time you see something beautiful like the Grand Canyon or Yosemite or the Presidio, you're just blown away. So, and it's interesting how for different communities, you see them at different times in your life, right? So thinking about kind of your first camping trip, and what was like the peak wonder from your first camping trip?
Well, I can't really remember my first camping trip. I was like, woo, I was probably like 1 or 2 years old, but I have photos. And growing up, I would always flip through those albums and see those photos of my parents holding me in that redwood forest, looking so teeny tiny with my jumpsuit that matched my mom's teal jumpsuit, totally 90s. But I just remember it being so magical and like this feeling tiny in such a large place. And through the years, my parents always took me to that Bosque Oscuro, that dark forest. And now as an adult, I have to go back and find it. They just say it's down by Pescadero, but I don't know. But it just having that experience over and over again, and then getting to work at Muir Woods and having that experience as an adult, even though it's a different forest, getting to feel so small in this tiny, like being in a huge magical place. That's a highlight
You
for
have
me.
such a passion for these places, and it's so amazing that you have this experience, and that anybody who's interested in finding out how to work in the national parks can do that, right? So so thank you so much, MJ, and you'll still be on. We may have questions coming in later, but I wanted to kind of transition from one passionate member of the national park team over to another. Yakuta Poonawalla is here with us. She's the Community Programs Manager for the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. And she also has seen some beautiful places and has such a passion for where she's from and where she is now. Yakuta, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So happy to be sharing this space with all of you. And I'm going to start by sharing a bouquet of flowers for all of you, because I love flowers and I love making people fall in love with flowers. So here it is again. Again, my name is Yakuta Poonawalla, and the name Yakuta comes from the word yakut, which is an Arabic word for the precious gemstone ruby. So I like to believe that I'm a gemstone of Mother Earth. I work in the Golden Gate National Parks here in San Francisco, California, a park I now get to call home. And I get to wake up every day and think about how I can bring people from
Oh man, this tends to happen every once in a while where we'll have some technical issues. So thank you for your patience. We're going to bring Yakuta back on as quickly as possible. We are not going to miss her story at all, but we're going to give a couple of minutes.
I'm here.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, Yakuta, please
I'm so
start
sorry.
over. That's okay.
I'm not sure what you heard, but if you had asked me in my teenage years, did you ever think that you would be one day working in a national park? My answer would be no. And my journey up until this point has been one where I've followed my heart, listened to my gut and intuition, by observing, by listening, by asking questions and overcoming many fears, many barriers, lots of confusion, lots of what the world calls failures, and I say opportunity for growth, lots of stereotypes, and really challenging the way society thinks of a woman and sees a woman, especially in the outdoor and environmental conservation world. And I wasn't afraid to be that different voice in a room full of many similar voices. So my
I think I see her again. Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, yeah. I think so.
I'm here.
Wonderful.
All right, I will continue and not let technology not allow me to share my story with all of you and inspire you all. So sports was really considered something that was for boys. And I really wanted to break that tradition. And there was a time when I wanted to be a professional athlete, but of course didn't know how to. So I really tapped into my adventurous spirit and went for a backpacking trip up in the Himalayas, which was really transformational for me, and which is where I knew that I wanted to work for nature and in nature. But I didn't have any role models. And I didn't even know you could pursue a career in environmental conservation and stewardship. But every job that I've done since then has had so much value for me. I don't have a traditional background in science or environmental conservation. I started working in a bank, and then I was a telemarketing executive. And so everything that I learned from those jobs, I continue to value, whether it was management or operations or learning how to speak to people from different backgrounds and cultures. But where it really all began was over a cup of tea. There was a couple that ran a youth outdoor education center in Pune. And I picked up the phone and called them and said, I want to share my stories of my explorations and my experiences in nature. And they called me over. They had trust in me, they had faith in me, and they called me over. And over a cup of tea, I was really able to share my passion and love for nature. And that's really where my journey began. And as I worked with young people and took them all across India in various national parks, I really thought about how I was becoming interested in communicating the natural world. And how do you make science accessible? So I decided to do a course in Mumbai in India, which is an all-women's program that really empowers women to work on social issues and use various communication tools like journalism, photography, documentary filmmaking, and how can you tell stories of your connection with nature or any other social issue that you're really passionate about. And that experience really allowed me to challenge the status quo and believe in myself, and finally gave me the confidence to go and work up in the mountains in the Himalayas. And I worked with a social nonprofit that focused on working with the indigenous communities of the mountains and really thinking about sustainable development and environmental conservation, but from a very indigenous perspective and ancestral knowledge perspective. And then I moved to the United States and continued to listen to my heart and really wanted to work with the parks and become a park ranger, and found this job with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. And when I applied, I was declined an interview. And I was persistent, and I wrote back to the hiring team and I said, hey, we should chat, we should meet. I remembered that cup of tea that was so instrumental in my life in helping me start my career. And so I asked them if they would meet me for a cup of tea, and they said yes. And 2 weeks later, they actually invited me for an interview for this job. And of course, it hasn't been easy. There's been a lot of challenges. There's been a lot of learning opportunities for me. I've had to learn, I've had to read a lot of books, I've had to take a lot of classes, but 7 years later, I can name any plant at Land's End or in the Presidio. Well, maybe not any, most of the plants, or really get you excited about the natural world in the national parks and make you fall in love and help you find your connection with national parks in this area. So if I were you, I would say, trust yourself. Find your story, write it down, and share it the way you have experienced it, right? Ask yourself, how does your community, your culture, the language you speak, the experiences you've had, the neighborhood you may have grown up in, how does all this shape you and make you who you are? And then don't hesitate to share that story, right? It wasn't easy at the beginning for me, but I was not shy to tell my story the way I wanted to share it. And then I would say, find your mentors, talk to them, ask them questions, ask for feedback. It's okay to not have answers to everything. It's okay to be confused. Growth never ends, right? And then I would say, observe nature and learn from nature's offerings, right? The sun, the moon, the birds, plants, and all the other species in nature we share our lives with have something we can learn from. And I continue to learn every day. So don't wait for something to happen. make it happen, right? Make that phone call, meet someone you want to learn from for a walk or a cup of tea. Don't make assumptions about why you're not suited for a job, because you want to think about ways in which your unique experiences can actually make you a strong candidate. Be open to opportunities. And then lastly, I'll leave you with this. I think to my younger self, I would have said, Yakuta, read, 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 right? Get lost in books and then find yourself and then find the world around you. I spend a lot of my time outdoors and playing in nature, and nature has definitely been a big teacher for me, right? But books continue to be a big teacher for me. And read about books, not just from your local authors, but read about books from people who are from different cultures and different countries and different backgrounds, because that's really going to allow for an opening, allow you to learn about the world and also about yourself. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening, and really appreciate sharing this space with all of you.
Thank you so much, Yakuta. We're so lucky to have you working in our parks and being a resource for everybody here. I know that you have a passion for wildflowers. What is your favorite wildflower?
Oh my goodness, I can't believe you're asking me that. It's the hardest question. But you know what? I know it. So the sunflower family is the largest plant family in the plant families, right? And daisies, asters are just beautiful. Nobody gives too much attention to them because they're not the glamorous flowers. But the field daisies are the most exciting ones, right? You imagine lying on a field or a meadow full of daisies. But my favorite one is dahlias. I love dahlias. The colors they bring, they just make you happy. They make you smile, and they do something to you that other flowers may not be able to do.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you so much. And Yakuta is the pinnacle of persistence today, with coming back on amidst technical issues and just your story in general. So thank you so much. We'll keep you on in case any other questions come in after. And thank you again. I wanted to just transition over to our next panelist, Bill Merkle, who is the wildlife ecologist, who also has a great, a bit of a different journey into the park, into your position that we haven't heard yet. So Bill, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and always excited to help boost nature. I'm going to talk about being a wildlife ecologist, and I work in the Division of Natural Resource Management and Science at Golden Gate National Recreation Area and Muir Woods. And so I'm going to talk about the journey to becoming a scientist and natural resource manager with the Park Service. What do I do as a wildlife ecologist? We inventory wildlife and habitat. We monitor populations to figure out how they're doing, status and trends. We do habitat restoration. And I also end up doing a lot of compliance. We're a complex park. We have a lot of projects. And so I work to minimize impacts to wildlife and habitat and our other resources like water, soundscapes, dark night skies, etc. So similar to Yakuta, I'm going to hit you with a punchline first. And I think it's really important for you to go out and explore and experience and really find what you're passionate about and then pursue it. What if you don't know? A lot of you probably don't. That's okay. I was 24 years old and had a degree in economics and political science from undergraduate and wasn't quite sure where I was going. After a few career opportunities, I ended up in Seattle, and I started taking a wildlife biology course at University of Washington one night a week, and I loved it. And the professor would offer optional field trips, and we'd go out. He was an ornithologist, so he studied the science of birds, and we would go out and go on these bird watching trips on Saturdays all day, and it was fantastic. And one day we went to a wildlife refuge managed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And the manager came out and talked to us for a little bit. And I was like, wow, like I really want that job. And so I talked to my professor and was like, how do I get there? And so we started setting that path. And so the next thing I did, I felt like I had sort of found that area I wanted to that I was passionate about. And so what's next? I think the next step is exploring and gaining more experience. And I ended up applying to be a field research assistant on several wildlife research studies. And I got to do radio telemetry on coyotes up by Lake Tahoe. I was misnetting songbirds, catching birds in nets, and then you put little bands on their legs and you measure them and you let them go. I was doing work with amphibians and also got to trap small mammals and flying squirrels. After about 3 years of coursing up and down the West Coast doing these jobs, you kind of feel like you've learned more and you maybe know more than some of the researchers you're working for. And that's when I really knew I was going to go to graduate school. And so I started applying. It took me over a year to get in. I got declined my first year, but was persistent. Couple of things I could say: grad school is really hard. That's where your passion really comes in, because there's going to be some pitfalls. I got accepted at University of Colorado at Boulder. My advisor initially had us sort of in to work doing research on wolves of Yellowstone that had recently been reintroduced, and that was super exciting to me. Within my first year, that opportunity sort of fell through, and I had to develop my own doctoral dissertation project. And so I fell back on a lot of the work I had been doing on songbirds and got my doctoral degree in songbird ecology in biology, but studying songbirds. After I graduated, I started teaching, and then I was madly networking, and I really wanted to get applying for natural resource management jobs. I put in an application to GGNRA, and it didn't hear a thing. And finally, 10 or 11 months later, I had a message on my answering machine: would you like to interview? And I was searching for the job information, and I was like, yes, I want to interview. And next thing I knew, I started the job, and here I am 17 years later. I feel like I kind of have my dream job. I think the National Park Service is the premier preservation organization, I think, in the world. Our mission is so inspiring, and I think you see that resonating across all the panelists, to preserve and protect natural and cultural resources for future generations. And real quick, favorite parts of my job: I love doing science, but I love getting out in the field and have a cool project catching and moving endangered butterflies to bump up one of our park populations. So that's super exciting to me.
Thank you so much, Bill, for sharing your expertise and your path. I think you hit on a couple of really, really important aspects, like passion and persistence, and like the realness. The graduate school is hard, and when you kind of peak in a particular position, you're looking for what's next, right? So I think a question that I personally have is like, what would your top tip be for an interview? Like when you go into an interview, what's like the top thing that you would keep it in the front of your mind while you're getting ready for that interview?
One thing I really look for is show that passion. Do a little research. I mean, it's easy these days to look things up on. I'm kind of taken aback when people don't take a look at, we have information on our natural resource management and science division, and you could look, and if you're applying for a wildlife job, you should be able to, we're going to have to train you on certain things, but you could say like, oh, I know you work with these species, and I saw this interesting thing on mission blue butterflies. And it just, I think that impresses the interviewees a little bit. I think because we're all so passionate about working for the parks, I love it when people come back and I'm like, oh, I really want to work for the Park Service. I love the mission. I love what the Conservancy does with their Parks for All Forever. And, so I think that's, I think besides showcasing some of your experience, I think showing that passion is really important.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Bill, for sharing. And Bill will stick around if any other questions come up in the chat. But we're gonna scoot over to our next panelist. We have a couple more. Here we have Masaki Mizushima, who has also a very interesting story where he's actually doing a bit of globetrotting. So Masaki, please, we want to hear all these places that you've been and where you are now.
Absolutely. And thank you all for having me as one of the panelists this morning. And so again, my name is Masaki Mizushima. It's a Japanese name. My father's Japanese and from Japan, and I'm originally from Southern California. And my current position with the National Park Service is a supervisor. I am a supervisory park ranger for interpretation, and I work at the Marin Headlands, which is a part of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. My journey with the Park Service really started almost, well, about 10 years ago now. I graduated from college with a degree in business administration, as well as history. History was a passion of mine, and although I had no idea what a national park was, nor did I have any experience in the outdoors, in camping or backcountry camping or anything like that. My parents did instill in me an interest and passion for nature. And so I knew that I enjoyed history. I knew that I enjoyed nature. However, that wouldn't come into play until a little later. I graduated in 2008, and a big thing happened in 2008, a pretty big recession, in fact. And so I ended up working in Japan for a couple of years speaking English. And when I returned, my Japanese actually ended up being pretty decent. But it was still surprisingly really hard to find any sort of job, any sort of position just to make ends meet. Eventually I did take up a night job folding laundry all night long, doing patrols in a hotel all night. And through that time, as I was searching online, various application websites, various jobs, high paying, low paying, all over the place, California, beyond, I came across usajobs.gov, and I came across all these really interesting positions that apparently worked for someone called the federal government. I had no idea about all these different jobs, and a really cool title came up, and it was called Park Ranger. And I thought, hey, that sounds really cool. Where is this? And it ended up being up in Alaska, and they were specifically looking for people who were able to speak Japanese. And so I felt at that time not too confident about my Japanese ability, speaking ability. And it was really my grandma who said, you know what, just give it a try. You lived there for 2 years. You know the language a lot better than a lot of other people. Why not give it a shot? And so I did. And I interviewed, and ultimately what they said was, if you are willing to purchase your own plane ticket to come up here in this very remote area called Katmai National Park and Preserve, if you were able to come up with 5 to 6 months of worth of food and package that up and send it up here, because there isn't a grocery store up here, that's how you get your food. And if you're able to come up here yourself, you've got the job for the summer. And it's about 5 to 6 months. So I thought, why not? It's 5 to 6 months. I just need to make sure I survive through that time, and we'll see what this leads to. And so I did, and it was another world out there. I never thought I'd make it to Alaska, that I even wanted to visit up there. And it was in this bizarre place where brown bears roam about. And that's what these photos are showing right now. They don't show the bears, but they are just fishing all over this river that you can see behind me, the Brooks River. It was really from there that this was where I learned that I can combine my two interests and passions, sharing history and sharing nature with others, and teaching people and being of service to others in a visitor center. Now, my work didn't end in Alaska. In Alaska, I did jump from various parks, spent 3 seasons at Katmai, a couple seasons over at a place called Glacier Bay National Park with glaciers and humpback whales. I ended up getting my first permanent job with the Park Service north of the Arctic Circle for 3 years at a place called Western Arctic National Parklands. In and amongst that midst, I also worked a few seasons at a place called Death Valley. And so this, in this photo here is my uniform at Death Valley National Park. We did living history programs out there. So we played roles of folks back in the 1930s. And now I'm working at Golden Gate because it came to a point where, similar to Bill, I felt, you know what, I've learned from so many mentors and so many supervisors, and I want to be able to be that person now. And so that's how I was able to step into this role here in San Francisco. And so I just want to share that, if you don't feel like you have all the tools yet, if you don't feel like you're ready for an adventure, or you're trying to seek out that adventure, I just want to say, try the National Park Service. It has taught me so much. And if you like to continue learning and learning on the job, a great place to be.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I like that that you're able to really drill down into the language ability, right? To just try it, to kind of build confidence around it, and to be able to use it and utilize it. So that's a fantastic ad. A question came in about transferring from park to park. Not sure if you would be able to answer this, but how much choice do people have about where to go? I know that you shared with your Alaska position, you really said this is what you need to do, and you did it. But in terms of like transfers, what would that look like?
Sure, yeah. So it's not like the military where the government tells you, okay, you got to go here now, or here, you got to go here now. You have really all the choice in the matter. What's really hard is trying to work out if they actually have a job there. And so, yep, it's absolutely up to you. When it was up to me to decide, okay, I've learned all I could from Katmai National Park and Preserve. I think I want to open the doors up elsewhere. And so that was my choice to apply for a position over at Glacier Bay at that point. Or, you know what? I love this seasonal life. I love being able to have the winter off, or be able to jump from park to park. But I think I'm ready for some stability. I think I want to find that permanent job. Now that's up to you. I know people who've been seasonal for 20 plus years and they love it and it works for them. So
nice. We also had a comment that came in that was incredible, that you had to bring your own food. So that's kind of, that was a great add to the story. So thank you. We have some more questions, but we'll ask them again at the end. So please just stick around, Masaki, and we'll bring you back on. Okay, thank you again. I wanted to introduce our next presenter, who just kind of ran with the flow right here. And this is Kimble Talley. And she will share her journey to her position in the national parks. Welcome, Kimble. We can't quite hear you, Kimble, although I definitely see you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there
Okay.
you are.
All right, so sorry.
That's all right.
I'm Kimble Talley, education specialist at Golden Gate National Recreation Area. And like Masaki, I am a supervisory park ranger as well. I started my career in the National Park Service almost 12 years ago. Before joining the Park Service, I was a classroom teacher. So I taught at an all-boys public school for 4 years. To give some context, I do have a degree in history with a minor in secondary education with a teaching license. I also have a master's in secondary education and another master's in learning systems technology, which is mostly just instructional technology. I was at a National History Day competition when I was teaching, and was approached by someone who said, hey, there's this job opening at Little Rock Central High School National Historic Site. And so I did some research. Again, I did not grow up in the Parks Service. I did not, and this is a picture here of my kids. We lived at Grand Canyon National Park for a year and a half. But I didn't grow up in national parks. I didn't know how USA Jobs worked. And so I had to do some research and decided to leave the classroom and take this opportunity. And it was great. And over the past few years, I've been education specialist. I've been a training specialist. I've been a chief of interpretation. I've had all kinds of jobs in the Park Service. And I often tell people that and I've traveled a lot in several of my roles. But my daughter, she went to 3 kindergartens. And so I know Masaki was talking about the choice to travel or to move around. And so my family has moved around. My husband also works for the Park Service. So we're called dual career. But I want to tell you a little bit about the things that I do for the Park Service. So as a training specialist, and this photograph here is me participating in a leadership academy. So in the Park Service, there's many leadership programs, and we're in Atlanta, Georgia, at a restaurant for our dinner. Can you do next slide, please? This is a photograph of me in Santa Monica Mountains. And so in my job, I've been all over. The first photo that we had up, I was in DC. So I've been all over the Park Service in my career. And I think it's been pretty cool. And I think the things that I have really enjoyed in my job is the flexibility and the ability to travel, but also the connections and working with young people and communities. So this photograph is a picture of me working at Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad National Historical Park. So there's 2 Harriet Tubman parks in the Park Service. One is in New York, where Harriet Tubman lived as a free person, and then in Church Creek, Maryland. And so this photograph tells a story of her life as an enslaved person. Next slide. So this is the teacher workshop that I was doing. This again is in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so I spent many years doing teacher professional development workshops. This is a virtual workshop where we connected with over 50 educators in the Park Service to talk about how to engage young people in our national parks. And if you can do the next slide. And this is me in Sequoia National Park. So one of the trainings I used to lead as a training specialist is on what we call audience-centered experiences. So we train our interpreters, our educators on the importance of engaging our audience where they are, right? We know all people, especially people who look like me, might not have grown up in nature, may not spend a lot of times in the outdoors, and what these national parks look like, right? Everybody goes outdoors and spend time in their backyard, but these national treasures may mean and look a little different. And so how does that look and feel for different audiences? Next slide. And again, as a trainer, I just got to Golden Gate, and so I'm just really excited to work with the young people and the teachers in this community. But this is a workshop. This is called Museums Rise Up, and it was a conference in Jackson, Mississippi. And so again, you can see the things on the table. It's a really interactive couple of hour workshop, just talking about how to engage people again where they are. All right, and so I just want to end by saying I've been blessed to have this job. It's really important for me to represent and to communicate with mostly young people, brown and Black young people, and to get them excited about our national parks. Recently, I've been doing a lot of facilitated conversations with schools and teachers in national parks around race-based dialogues, around implicit bias. And it's been really a joy to push people and to like innovate and be creative through virtual opportunities. And so thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
Thank you so much, Kimble. I think that the travel that you've done, the different experiences that you've had throughout the country, I have a question about networking. It is really hard for people that are both introverts and extroverts to network because it's like a skill to have. What would your top tip around networking be for young people or people looking into different careers?
Yeah, I think to start now, like to start, don't wait until you think you need the person to network, right? Networking should be, I think it should be strategic. So you're thinking about what you may need now and also later, and then find different kinds of people to network with. And so like in the Grand Canyon, when I lived there for a year and a half, one of my closest friends was the wildlife biologist. So even listening to the other panelist story, right? I think we can all learn and connect with people that are different from us. And so like just knowing that networks are important, again, being timely and relevant, but also like thinking about your networks today and then also in the future is important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. So thank you again, Kimble, and we will we'll keep you on here in case more questions pop up. But we're going to transition to our final panelist today, Fatima Colindres, who is here. Fantastic story, and I'm going to let her tell it. Fatima, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I am so excited to be here and share my story with all of you. So I am, as I start my story, I started from the beginning, not the very beginning, but the beginning of the story of Fatima Colindres in the Park Service and what inspired me to be a park ranger. So I am not from here originally. I was born in El Salvador, and my first language was Español. Yo hablo español. And how did I become a park ranger? What happened? What inspired me? Well, in this photo that you're seeing right now, it's me as a teenager in high school, outdoors with my environmental club at Balboa High School. They would take us out to different outdoor spaces. And one of the spaces that I was taken to was the Marin Headlands. And that's where I met my first park ranger, which inspired me to look into the possibilities of being a park ranger. Up to that point, I'd never thought that that career with the National Park Service was even for me. As an immigrant from El Salvador, I came here when I was 6 years old during the Civil War in El Salvador. And growing up here in San Francisco from age 6 on, my mother cleaned houses. And so I thought that the only jobs available to me were either cleaning houses, taking care of children, being a gardener, because other family members worked in gardening, or a mechanic. I had an uncle who was a mechanic. So I thought I can be a mechanic. I can be the first woman mechanic. That was me in high school. But then when I got into this environmental club and started going hiking with them, it really like opened my eyes again. I say again because the very first time that I was inspired or started dreaming about working outdoors was really when I was in 6th grade. When I was in 6th grade, I was attending Visitation Valley Middle School here in San Francisco, and I was part of the bilingual program at the time. As a newcomer student, I was still learning the language, the English language, and so I was still in bilingual class. And in 6th grade, Visitation Valley took us camping for the very first time. And I was super excited, but my mother was not. My mother was like, no, tú no vas, you're not going. And I was like, please, mommy, please let me go. My teacher had to come to the house to ask my mother for permission and to guarantee my mom that she would take care of me, that she would not leave me alone, that I would be safe. But when I got to that campsite, because my mom eventually let me go, I got really scared because right next to the campsite, there was a river. And I had grown up with stories in my household about an evil spirit. La Ciguanaba is what we call her. In Mexico, she's known as La Llorona. And here, she's known as the weeping woman, the woman that cries and it's going to take you away if you go to the rivers. So when I saw that river, and many of my fellow students, also saw the river, we were so scared. scared because our class was made up of kids from Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and El Salvador. And so we were so scared. Our first outdoor adventure that night was going to be a night hike. And I don't know what those educators were thinking about putting little, immigrant kids from Latin America on a night hike, not just any night hike, but a solo night hike. Can you imagine 30 seconds of total hell, because La Ciguanaba could take us at any of those 30 seconds. Well, they lined us up. I was second in line to go, and Rosminda was right in front of me. She was from Nicaragua. And when they told Rosminda, okay, it's your turn to go, Rosminda fainted. Oh, and I went down with her praying, please, God, don't let La Ciguanaba take Rosminda. You can think, oh my God, how did Fatima become a ranger after that? Well, what happened that night is that the educators saved the night by not making us go on a night hike, and instead took us around the campfire and told silly stories and sang silly songs. The stories were about animals and plants that grew around that area or lived around that area that we were camping out. And that truly hit me in my heart because I love plants. And that's what you're seeing in this photo. I became a volunteer with the National Park Service. When I started going to college, I wanted to know how to become a park ranger. And I was inspired by my career college counselor, Balboa, that told me that if I followed a biology degree, I could become a park ranger one day. Well, I don't know about you all, but math has never really been a strong suit for me. Unlike our, ecologists, Bill Merkle and Kimble, who are amazing, I think, with technology and math and science, those things were always extra hard for me, and I had to take those classes 3 times to pass them. But what came really easy to me was history, and I love to read, and I love to share the stories that I read. And so I went to the University of San Francisco State, and there I tried to be an ecology major or biology major, but I was lucky enough to meet another park ranger by chance. I was volunteering at La Raza, teaching history of the United States. I was teaching older adults citizenship classes when my baby was newborn. And so I was unemployed at the time because I was at home with my child. And I decided to volunteer to help my mom and her fellow students out and teach them the history of the United States. And that's where I met another ranger, my second park ranger, who happened to be Len Fonfa, who at the time was the education specialist for the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, which is the park that I work for now here at the Presidio. And so she, told me that she was a park ranger. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be a park ranger. I'm going to go back to school once my child is 2 years old. How can I be a park ranger? And so she said that she didn't have any ranger positions available, but she had an internship available. And so I said, sign me up. So I became a volunteer intern with the Park Service here at the Presidio with the education team. And I did that for 2 years. And during those 2 years, the supervisor of the Presidio, another lady, another woman ranger, Naomi Torres, she was watching me from the distance, and she saw that I was using my Spanish language to translate all the documents, all the permission slips that we would give to the youth on the field trips and before the field trips. And so I use my Spanish language abilities to help, make this park a welcoming place. And now that's what I do today as an outreach ranger. I work with Mariajosé. We are a great team, and we use our Spanish language abilities to welcome new audiences to the park. And if they can't come out to the park, then we take the park to them. We do campfire programs offsite for people. And right now that we're staying in place and staying in our home, we are taking this natural cultural history, the knowledge about plants and how to use them from the Ohlone people through virtual programs. And we have teamed up with the library, as you can see us today, sharing our stories with all of you. I hope that our stories encourage all of you to follow your dreams. And if you are like me, an immigrant un emigrante de otro lugar, from another place. Don't let that stop you. No dejen que eso les pare sus sueños. You reach high and aim high and dream. And you know what? Somehow, some way, you will meet the people along the way that are going to make your dream come true. I am living my dream. I did not let the obstacles along my path stop me. I was a young mother, but you know what? Even as a young mother, you can make your dreams come true. If you were like me, living paycheck by paycheck, you know what? Don't let that stop you, because look, I was able to become a park ranger while I was in school, and that helped pay for my school. So when I graduated, I was not in debt, thank God, like many other people in my family have been. So I encourage all of you to dream big, follow your dreams, and aim high, and do what you love. I love to tell stories, and now I get paid for it. So
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Fatima. La Llorona didn't stop you either. So we're just so grateful to have you working so closely with the public library in this year and in years past. You are just amazing. So the work that you do with MJ has been fantastic. Just kind of a quick question. What's your favorite national park spots to share?
you know, I work and live here in the Presidio of San Francisco. And so, of course, I'm going to focus on the Presidio because I would love for all of you to come out if you haven't yet. My favorite spot in the whole wide world here in the Presidio is El Polín Spring. I love El Polín because one, it's not very populated, like not many people know about it, but now you know. I'm sharing it with you. And that's where you'll find hummingbirds. If you love hummingbirds, and I hope you do, you'll see hummingbirds at El Polín, bathing at El Polín Spring. And why is that important? Because my Olone friends have shared with me that if you see a hummingbird early in the day or anytime during the day, you're going to have good luck for the rest of the day. So I wish you all wonderful good luck every day.
Wonderful. That's a fantastic way to finish us off. I want to invite all of our panelists to turn their screens on. We do have a couple of questions and we're running a tad late, so hopefully we can do this rapid fire response. But we do have questions that came in. So let's just go ahead and get started. The first one is for Hilda. How has your community family responded to you getting involved with the national parks?
Yeah, I think, thank you for that question. I think it's something that has taken a little bit of a while because I think even still my mom sometimes when I was first working at the park, she was like, oh yeah, you're a park ranger, right? And I think that's her just understanding of just what park jobs are or what it means. But yeah, I think where I really feel the sense of community and like pride is definitely from the young people that participate in it. I think confidence is something that's really important to practice. I don't think we get that a lot in other places other than like safe spaces. Sometimes even school is not for everyone. Sometimes school can make you not feel intelligent. It can make you feel doubtful about yourself. So sometimes that's also not a safe space. So it's really wonderful when, we get to practice confidence. We get to practice things that make us feel like we matter. And so I think whenever we're getting together and at the end of the program, I think it's really great to see the community that we've kind of helped build, that we put together and doing it through a social justice lens of whatever project we are working on, whether it's talking about the history of the Black Panthers in Oakland, or whether we're talking about stories like the Port Chicago, of the 50 men that got charged for mutiny. So through those stories, I think it's somewhere where we get a lot of pride and a lot of wanting to share with the community. I think that's kind of where we have that.
Definitely. Thank you. Next question is for Yakuta. Someone out there is admiring, like many of us, your career switch. And they're in accounting, but they do like to be outdoors. What's a good way to transition a career into the outdoors and other folks as well? Yakuta?
Mm-hmm. I think there's two things one can do. One, it's the internal journey, right? So learning more, like I said early on, read as much as you can, listen to other folks in the environmental conservation field or in the outdoor field, learn about their journeys. You're already starting by being here and learning about journeys, because then you can learn so much from those who have had challenges, and they're full of challenges, right? But how you navigate through those challenges and overcome them is really fascinating, and each one of us does it differently. Volunteer, right? Volunteer in your city parks, your state parks, your national parks, volunteer with outdoor organizations. It just doesn't have to be outside in the field. Everything's online temporarily. And so there's a lot of nonprofit organizations, and the outdoor industry is really looking for help. So I would say volunteer, and then really just, I know everyone says curious, but what does it mean to be curious? So really putting yourself out there, asking a lot of questions, and talking to those people who you think would help you. And there's a huge community out there. The park community is very, very collaborative and very welcoming. And you can just sometimes pick up the phone and talk to them, and they'll chat for hours about their journey and how they can support you. So there's a very supportive community, and lean into that community.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add to that, transition to a career into the outdoors? If not, I have a couple other questions. We're going to scoot over to another question, and this is for our folks who have used their second language abilities. Where can you get your education in interpretation? So that may seem like, yeah, let's start there. Where can you get education in interpretation?
So I'll start with that one. So the word interpretation that we are using refers to interpreting the history of the park. So the storytellers. That's what interpretation means for our title or our division. But if you're using or thinking of the word as interpretation as translators or people that interpret a language, Mariajosé and I and Masaki, and Yakuta. I don't know about Bill and Kimble if they speak another language, but for us that speak other languages, for me, it was from my mom. Yo aprendí a hablar español de mi mamá. So I learned from my mother. And so that's why for me, what challenges I have faced in my language interpretation at work is learning from dictionaries and from online science words, because those words were not in my vocabulary growing up because my mom never went to school. So those words like ciénaga, I work at the Chrissy Field area, so I talk about the marsh a lot. I had to learn that word from a dictionary.
Yeah, and then also like more on the interpretation label. So in the YouTube comments, I was sharing with somebody that there's different classifications for the National Park Service for park staff. So interpretation is one window. Those are the staff that you'll see at visitor centers in the park interacting with the public. There is law enforcement. They're the ones who wear the bigger badge and have the cars that you'll see patrolling the parks. And they're more like a traditional police officer. We also have maintenance division. We have trail building, and we have like Bill Merkle here with us today, like he's in a different division. So there's different types of park rangers, and there's a lot of misconceptions in the public. We're kind of all stereotyped as this like kind of police like park ranger that carry guns, and that's not the case for us. So for someone who did ask a question in the comments about whether we need to have some kind of firearm training, I am afraid of guns, so I would have never done that. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that for the different categories. And that's how you can use, if you're interested in the type of work that Fatima and I do, and Kimble and Masaki, we are the Division of Interpretation, if you can look that up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I feel similarly in the library, we're not all librarians. We are not all librarians. We are all library staff, but we're not all librarians. So I really could feel for that. So thank you, MJ and Fatima.
Can I also say that, you know, we're trying to tell our natural resource stories and about the resources that are out there, some of our projects or the science we do. And I think that's important for us. And I think sometimes sometimes people tell me you're speaking a little too technical or showing too many numbers. You know, And so that's where often we're getting help from people who do a lot more the outreach to the community and helping us present the factual information and technical information in a very digestible format.
And Yakuta, were you going
I just
to?
wanted to add, we often forget the number of internships that are there in the parks. And I mentioned volunteering, but there's so many internships in various departments and various teams. You could be in the communications team. You could work with Fatima and learn interpretation. You could work with Bill and learn about natural resources. And I feel like those are great entry points into this world and a great way to learn and grow in this work.
And I would say, we are hearing more that it is financially difficult to do some of our traditional, say, full year internships. And I think that's another great opportunity, is to either check in and network with one of us, or figure out a way to, come in once we get our volunteers back in the parks, like come in one Saturday a month. And that's a great way to network and get to know, and and then you can ask more questions about, how do I find these opportunities? And I think that's really important.
Wonderful. A couple more questions. Kimble, somebody was really, really interested in your what you shared about trainings that you offered. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Is that only for employees? Are there any public trainings that happen? And can people find out more information?
Yeah, so most of our trainings are for either employees. I'm a member of Allies for Inclusion. And so that group, we do mostly share opportunities for staff and partners. Our team also does professional development for teachers. And then we do get requests for the community. We just got a request recently to do a workshop for the community. So I would say, and if MJ can put maybe my email address in whatever way she's sharing, that would be helpful. And so our stuff is mostly like internal, but there are opportunities always for external. And so, yeah, if there's a need, there's enough participation, we can always do something for the public as well.
Then I would like to add that the community groups programs and outreach, we also lead trainings for community group leaders from community-based organizations and their families. So our trainings for the community group leaders include storytelling workshops and how to get around the park and bring your groups out to the park safely workshops, which include, different sites and maps and how to guide your way around without a ranger, if you come with just your group. And also career talks for middle schoolers, so like for youth and their families that are interested in our story. So that what we're doing here with you all, with all these extra panelists, Mariajosé and I do together for community-based organizations that are interested. And now we're doing it virtually. So before we used to do it in person, but that's also something that's available to community-based organization leaders and their families and their youth.
Yeah, and I would just add that I would love to work with Fatima and MJ with outreach to do something maybe even around implicit bias for the community virtually. So yeah, that's something that I've been doing a lot of recently for a lot of our parks, and it'd be a great opportunity to network and collaborate.
So everybody is seeing networking happening live right now on a panel. So good modeling, everyone. Thank you. Just two more questions. One came in about just the amazing work that everybody has shared and that you've all done, but also realistically, financially, can it support a life in the Bay Area? And I think about the teens that I work with who say, how much do you get paid? And I'm not going to ask that because people can look it up, right? But financially, can it support a life in the Bay Area? So whoever would like to answer that question.
Can I start?
For everyone, sure.
So I live and work in the Presidio, and I'm very blessed for that reason, because the Presidio has a program for employees who are low income to live here in the park and pay 30% of their household income. And that was a blessing for me as a young mother and as a young ranger back in the day. I've been a ranger for 20 years now, but when I first started, that really helped me because I was able to afford to live in the San Francisco and work and go to school and pay my school tuition at the same time I could afford my rent because of that program. So I just want to share that that's something for people that work in the Presidio, and it's not just for National Park Service employees, but for anyone that works in the Presidio. So, and there's many different types of jobs here in the Presidio, including restaurants. So for people that, you know, are in the culinary industry, that's an option. You know, my comadre, her husband works in one of the restaurants here in the park, and so they qualify for the same program that I am in because he works here in the park. So that's how low-income people can afford to stay in San Francisco and work in their dream job.
And
So this
I would say it's really challenging, and you know, it's probably across the park, you know, Park Service and San Francisco Public Libraries and our teachers, and it is something the park and the Parks Conservancy leadership are looking at. And are there ways to provide more housing opportunities like they have in the Presidio? I think they recognize people are living further out and have long commutes. And I think with this COVID and the forced teleworking, I think it's going to change some of our work practices. I think for some positions, there's still, once we get to that point, going to be the need for in-person work. But I think there's going to be more opportunity that you're not sitting in your car 3 or 4 hours, you know, a day, 5 times a week. So, you know, we're looking at that, but we know it's an issue.
And this is Kimble. I just want to say, because one thing I really like to share, especially with people who look like me, is that you have to be strategic and do your research. And so the National Park Service has recruitment packages. They have relocation packages. They can pay your student loans. They can, when you move, now come into the Park Service for the very first time, your relocation package is only given to you. But when you relocate, so every time, and I've relocated about 3 times now, I get a package for my family. So they pay for your mileage, they pay for your room and board, they give you a per diem. So I just think that's important to share, that there are incentives to get people in. And also, like, maybe you have to go out of the Park Service and then come back into the Park Service. So maybe there's another federal agency you look at. And I will say, like, I do share that I have 2 masters. I share that intentionally because it's important to get education. You know, you can start out along with the experience as a supervisor, but you can move up, you can earn money. So when I started as a classroom teacher, I made $30,000. I make probably 4 times that now. And I just tell people, because I think sometimes we don't want to share our money. We don't want to share our income. You can look it up. People don't even know where to go. But I will say that you can work hard, you can continue to move up, you can move around, and there are opportunities based on your education and experience. And so those things are important, to know that I left teaching for a reason, to make a little bit more money.
Thank you, Kimble.
Yes.
One more question for everybody, and this is going to close us out. Please share something that you wish somebody in your position would have told you when you were not in your position. Just one thing that you wish you would have heard as a young person or as a person transitioning from a career to a career. And then we'll close it out. Fatima?
Okay. Okay, something that I wish somebody would have told me about my position. I guess I wish somebody would have told me that I could be myself. You know, that I didn't have to try to pretend to be somebody else, that I could use my cultural history, my family history, my own personal experience, that is valuable and it's beautiful and it makes me who I am. And that helps other people that are similar to my life or my experience or my culture, even if they are from other parts of the world, that will make them feel comfortable and welcomed to be here with me in their national park. I wish somebody would have told me that, because that would have made me feel so less stressed out when I first started. You know, I thought I had to be like the ecologists that you saw on TV, or, you know, the people that you saw in the classroom in the university, who I was comparing myself to, and I almost dropped out because I thought I would never be like them, and that I was not qualified to be in this job that I am in now, because I was not white, and because I had never been camping, like outdoor camping. I didn't go camping until I was a park ranger in a tent, you know. So yeah, just somebody would have told me that my own personal experience is beautiful and powerful and worth sharing with the world, and just being me would make this job amazing.
Thank you, Fatima. Kimble, something that you wish somebody would have told you.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would share is, like, if you choose to move around, that's okay. If you choose to be be just in San Francisco for your career, that's okay. And so with that, you know, take advantage of opportunities like details, where you can go off for 4 months and learn about different division or a different job, and it's a trial period and it's low stakes and you can try things out. So it would just be take advantage of opportunities, regardless if you want to stay put or even explore.
Thank you, Kimble. Masaki?
Yeah, I would probably, I wish that someone told me exactly what we're doing right now, that there were actually jobs out there like this, that there are internships and volunteer positions like this. I didn't find out until I was actually in one, and it was a steep learning curve. And I loved it. But I really, after a few seasons, I really thought back and thought, oh, I really wish I got my foot in the door through an internship. And that's why in the role that I'm in right now as a supervisor, if there is an ask from, say, the education or outreach branch to provide some support, to provide some program support, I am all for it, because where I grew up in Southern California, we had no idea. And I'm still introducing national parks to my friends from down there.
Thank you so much. Bill, what's something that you wish somebody would have told you?
I'm going to sort of follow on Fatima and say that, you know, find your voice. I think, you know, we've brought you into this position for a reason. And even with interns, like, it's a Friday, something's happening. Bill, you have to go make and put up a coyote sign. And, you know, I call over the intern and, like, what do you think of this? Like, we have to get this out in the next 45 minutes. And I really want that opinion. Like, you know, I wasn't trained in how to make signs and what's the best language. And we have some experience with that, but I really wanted to get feedback. And so that's, I think, just finding your voice and being comfortable sharing that is really important.
Thank you, Bill. Passion. It's all about passion. Yakuta?
I would say that, and I mentioned this earlier when I had a moment to share, is that we live in a society where we always are asked to bring our best selves forward. And I wish someone had told me that it's okay to not bring your best self forward, because you can define what that best is. And you can bring it in a beautiful little package with all the fears and all the weaknesses that one says are weaknesses, but are really, again, opportunities for growth. And I feel like when the package is full of both the strengths and those areas where you can grow in, then there's an opportunity for an opening, right? And
it's okay to not bring your best self, especially with technical difficulties. This can happen.
Today is not my friend. I'll just stop there, but I know a lot of you have shared what I can resonate with.
Thank you, Yakuta. Thank you. And MJ?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things I wish they would have told me. But one of my main ones is education portion. There's so many misconceptions on like, you gotta go and get your degree. You gotta like it starts when you're in high school. It's like, what are you gonna get as your degree? Where are you gonna go to college? What are you gonna do? All those questions always like intimidated me, and I was always freaked out. They still freak me out. But I wish someone would have told me that you didn't have to go and seek the environmental science, the biology, the chemistry, the whatever the big popular degrees are. Now in the National Park Service, it's so open. There's so many different degrees that apply to this job. So I struggled for so many years. I was lucky to be hired as a student hire. And I just struggled through school while I was working full-time at the same time. And I wish they would have told me, like, you don't have to do biology. You don't have to do environmental science. You don't have to fail chemistry for the 4th time. So later in the game, years afterwards in college, I finally was able to switch to the major that I was interested in. So I graduated with an associate's in communications. So I still don't have a bachelor's degree. It is one of my dreams to get in the future, but as a ranger, I have that flexibility to then pursue my bachelor's degree, to then pursue my master's degree in the futures as well. So I wish they would have told me that and not spent 9 years failing and trying over and over and over again to find my passion and find the classes that I was not going to fail so that I can keep my job and get my permanent career in the Park Service. But yeah, I guess I'm throwing it back to Hilder, right?
Yeah, Hilder.
Yeah, so I think for me, I feel like I need to share something that was told to me over and over again. So I'm gonna go the opposite way. But yeah, I remember doing a project with Mariajosé when we were in the IYEL program. And we wore these shirts that said, I am an environmentalist in the front. And then in the back, there'd be something that would be the stereotype opposite of what an environmentalist is. So some of us were wearing shirts that says, I eat pepperoni pizzas, or I eat carne asada burritos, but I'm still an environmentalist. And so just that there is room for not just to be an interpreter, not just to like flowers in this movement, or to be a part of the parks, or just to be a part of the environmental field. Like, you can still be passionate about other things, and you can still bring all those things in. If you know Spanish, even if it's Spanish that's might not even be considered AP Spanish, but it's the Spanish that your mom teaches you, like, bring that forward. If you have a lot of energy, bring that forward. If you have chill energy, bring that energy. Like, we need that. And just because it's such a diverse part, you see it in nature. You see big trees, you see small plants, you see small bugs, you see big birds, right? Just like that. That's how we are. And so we really need that in the careers and in these movements. So yeah, if you are in any way, if you're inspired by any of these stories, like, yeah, please come out, reach out to us. And yeah, I'm sure we would love to talk some more about it.
Fabulous. That's it, guys. We finished it, Hilder. That was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, panelists, for being a part of today. I know we ran a little long, but it's so important to hear your voices and your stories and your journeys for our youth and for everybody out there to hear this. So thank you so much. Just if for folks out there, thank you for watching today's Nature Boost, and remember, you can rewatch it, our summer series, whenever you're in the mood for a trip to Land's End, or the story walk on the Presidio Promenade, or crafts with our author illustrator of the summer, Allison, or to hear about the panelists here. There's so much more. So thank you all for being a part of this, and that's it. Bye.